We have to talk some replacements for Jaylen Phillips because although the injury is absolutely brutal to Miami, they do have to likely add an edge to this roster because right now there just simply isn't enough at that position. So we're going to go through 4 players that I think the Dolphins could sign off of a practice squad or an NFL free agency to fill the spot on the Miami Dolphins roster. But before we get into that, I need to spread the positivity because Jaylen Phillips, returning from that torn Achilles he suffered a year ago, only to suffer an ACL injury and be out for the year after 4 weeks this season, is absolutely brutal. And I want to have Jaylen Phillips back here and him to know that the Dolphins fans are wishing him a speedy recovery. So spam those 15s down in the comments section. After the injury, this is where things stand on the Miami Dolphins roster. They only have 4 edges on the 53-man. Emmanuel Ogbah, Chop Robinson, Quinton Bell, and Mohamed Kamara. Obviously, Chop and Kamara are 2 rookies, Kamara being drafted in the 5th round and Chop Robinson being drafted in the 1st round this past year. Quinton Bell has been active for almost every single game, and it was a surprise 53-man roster find, as I didn't think he was going to be on the team. And then Emmanuel Ogbah was the man they signed right before training camp begun after Shaq Barrett retired in free agency. And now that Emmanuel Ogbah is your edge 1, it's a little bit concerning, I'm not going to lie. Ogbah's been pretty decent and okay through 4 weeks this season, so it's no knock on him, but it's just the fact that he's going to have to be your lead edge rusher going up against the top tackles every single week is the part that gets a little bit dicey. He's had 1 sack through 4 weeks. And then when you talk about who's going to be your 2nd and 3rd edge rushers now, Chop and Quinton Bell, they haven't been that productive, and we have detailed and went through the issues that Chop Robinson has in the run game. So now this position group, which was thought of as one of the best on the roster, now looks like one of the weakest. And now that Mo Kamara will be in the mix, the 5th round rookie out of Colorado State, who has been inactive every single week of the season thus far. If you did not know that, he has been healthy scratches every single week, just not having the trust, I guess, of Anthony Weaver to be active, and there's just other players that needed to be ready to go for this team. So you got Mo Kamara in the mix, but with those 5 guys, 2 of them being rookies, 1 of them being someone that was not expected to be on this roster, you probably have to add someone to the squad. So let's start with some names here, and I think number 1 is going to be Yannick Ngakoue, and now he is on the Baltimore Ravens practice squad, so you'd have to sign him off of the P squad, which the Dolphins already did once, right, with Tyler Huntley. He was on the Ravens practice squad, and then they signed him, and now he's the starting quarterback for a 2nd straight week in Miami. Maybe they do the same thing with Ngakoue, an experienced edge rusher who is probably the most productive guy that isn't on a 53-man roster right now. I mean, through 8 seasons of his career, going across Baltimore, going across Indy, Chicago, Jacksonville, 69 sacks, very nice, 224 tackles. He is as productive as it gets. Now, there are some injury concerns with him, as I think that's the reason why he was not signed in for agency. He's been dealing with some knee problems and had the worst season of his career last year in Chicago. And when you think about what Yannick Ngakoue can bring to the table for Miami, I think he would be a very solid pass rusher and would be probably an upgrade over Quinton Bell at bare minimum. The one issue with Ngakoue, and very similar to Chop Robinson, is that he struggles in the run-stopping department. He's not someone that sets the edge and does that extremely well in the run game. He can get after the passer. He's almost a more experienced, less athletic Chop Robinson at this stage of his career, which is fine because the Dolphins just flat out need pass rushers without Jaylen Phillips. But it will be something to monitor that if you brought in Yannick Ngakoue, it would be very, very difficult to play him and Chop Robinson at the same time because your run defense on the perimeter would not be good, and you'd be putting a lot of pressure on the interior of Calais Campbell and Zach Sealer to try to help in that run game and the linebackers, which, by the way, we should note as well, Calais Campbell could be an option on this roster to go from the interior to the exterior of that defensive line and maybe play Deshaun Handmore or Brandon Pillai in the middle with Zach Sealer. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because if the Dolphins end up making a move and adding an edge rusher to this roster, we will have you covered. Hit that sub button right now. I'm Nic Rohloff. We bring you videos every single day and sometimes multiple times a day. Next up here on a replacement option is Carl Lawson, the edge rusher who former Cincinnati Bengal, former New York Jet, right now is on the Dallas Cowboys practice squad. So there's a couple guys here right away that you'd have to sign to the 53-man, which I don't think would be anything of a surprise, right? Like when Jaylen Phillips inevitably gets placed on IR, the Dolphins are likely going to fill his roster spot with that 53-man. So signing someone off of a practice squad should be no of concern. Another productive player throughout his career, the former fourth-round pick, has been solid, and he suffered a pretty catastrophic injury 2 or 3 seasons ago, was able to return and actually play really well in his first year for New York, and then last season really struggled, but 27 sacks over his career. And when we talk about guys that Miami could sign to add to this 53-man roster, I hope all of you realize we are not talking about players that are going to come up here and be 10 sacks a season type guys and average a sack a game. That's not what we're talking about. Right now, we're just talking about depth pieces and veteran guys that can be insurance policies if Chop Robinson, Mo Kamara, and Quinton Bell, 3 pretty unknown players at this point in their careers, can't get the job done. That is why we are looking to go out and sign a veteran guy. Not to be some lead player on this team, but just provide some insurance for the Dolphins if Chop, Quinton, and Mo Kamara can't really hold their own as that opposite edge rusher to Emmanuel Ogbah. 2 more names to get to here in just a second, but we are sponsored by Game Time. Get started today with Game Time if you want to go see a sporting event, comedy show, concert, it doesn't matter. Game Time is the easiest way to purchase your tickets, and they have the lowest price guaranteed. And with the Heat season coming around the corner, you probably want to go watch some Heat basketball as they might be the best team in Miami. So when you want to go get your tickets, use the new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. A couple other features I really like on Game Time: all-in pricing. This feature shows the total up front of your ticket with no surprise fees at checkout, and then the seat views that you get. You have a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. It is the easiest way to purchase tickets, and here at Chat Sports, all of us use it. I use it specifically whenever I want to go see an event, when I'm traveling or in Dallas where we are located. It does not matter. When there is an event I want to go to, I use Game Time because of all these great features, and I know I'm getting the lowest price guaranteed. So get started today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, moving along here, we got 2 actual free agents to talk about here to round out today's show. We'll start with Rasheem Green, and why it's important to note that they're actual free agents is because if the Dolphins wanted to sign them, they can actually just bring them to their practice squad instead of going right to the 53-man roster. And Green is someone who is probably the best player just flat out in free agency when you look at the edge department. He's had productive seasons in the past. Last year played for Chicago, was not very good there. He's played in Seattle. He's played in Houston over his career. You see the good season he had in 2021, pretty far removed at this point. But it's just an overarching theme, right? That, as I said a little bit ago, when we talk specifically about these players, we can talk about what they did 3 or 4 seasons ago. We can talk about what they can do now. But the real story here is that you just got to bring in someone to just provide depth. Because God forbid if a Chop Robinson, an Emmanuel Ogbah, a Quinton Bell, it doesn't matter. If one of those 4 guys that are currently on your 53-man gets hurt, like, you are at a severe disadvantage, and your defensive line, which is already pretty banged up since Bradley Chubb's on the PUP list, and now without Jaylen Phillips, like, you are at a very bad spot. So you just got to bring in a veteran that may not know the complete defense, may not have the complete juice, but you can rely on and know that they at least have a clue on what to do in an NFL game if one of these guys that have been on your roster from the end of training camp at the end of August goes down. That is why you really got to bring in a veteran. And speaking of a veteran, how about a guy that is familiar with this locker room and with at least some of this coaching staff, and Melvin Ingram? the longtime Charger, now was with the Dolphins over the past 2 seasons. He played in 17 games in 2022, only 3 last season. And many Dolphins fans know he was very solid for Miami in 2022. Played in all 17, racked up 6 sacks, hit the quarterback 10 times. Last season was a little bit of a different story, obviously. And you also had Bradley Chubb and Jaelan Phillips for most of the year. But I'll say this. The thing I have with Melvin Ingram, because I actually think it would be a no-brainer to bring Melvin Ingram at least to the practice squad right now. But the question is, does he still have juice? He's been passed up on by a lot of other teams in free agency. He's still out there. He's 35 years old. The numbers last year weren't great. In 2022, they were very solid. So the question is, does he still have the ability to get off the ball and at least have the explosiveness to a degree to make the opposing offensive lineman sweat a little bit when he's lined up against them? That's the only question I have with Melvin Ingram. But other than that, I would probably like to bring him in more than anyone else. But you drop a name. Who should the Dolphins sign off of a practice squad, off of free agency to go to the squad? I know a lot of people might say, what about some trade targets? Well, right now with the Dolphins at 1-3, I don't really think that I would be willing to make a trade. Like, I just don't think I'm willing to do that, because when you think of a team that's number 2 in the NFL draft order right now, season spiraling downwards, if you don't win this week against New England and you move to 1-4, you might as well just punt the season, if we're going to be honest. Sure, maybe you can go on a 5 of 7 game win streak and be right back into the year and have a chance to fight for a wild card spot, but you know this season isn't going to end up in a Super Bowl if you can't start stacking some wins without Tua Tagovailoa and all the injuries that you already have. So to me, I'm not going to sink assets in this team already, even if it's a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick. To me, it doesn't matter. I'm not wasting draft picks to go out and trade for someone that isn't probably going to move the needle. So in my opinion, I think you go out and sign someone right now, and if you happen to stack wins, you beat New England this week, you come out of the bye and beat the Indianapolis Colts in week 7, and then you get Tua back for week 8 and you're 3-3 with the trade deadline approaching in a week and a half. Maybe that's when you go out there and trade for an edge rusher if you really feel like you can go on a run here. But right now, I'm holding off on making a trade. I'm going to sign someone, but I won't make a deal, and I'm not going to sink any more assets in a season that right now looks like it'd be teetering on tanking. All right, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Like I said, if the Dolphins ultimately make a move, we will have you covered with a video. We also will still be live for every single Dolphins game. So join us for that Sunday Week 5 game as the Dolphins travel to New England, where hopefully Mike McDaniel and Tyler Huntley can right the ship and get to 2-3.